Part 5. The Struggle to Rebuild. The little sprout had awakened hope, and the animals of the forest had begun their work. Day after day, they carried seeds, brought water, and guarded the young plants. The silence of sorrow had slowly turned into the sound of life. Yet rebuilding a paradise was not simple. The fire had left deep scars, and every step forward seemed to bring new challenges. The soil, blackened by flames, was hard in many places. Seeds that the parrots dropped did not always grow. Some were swallowed by ash, others dried before they could sprout. The elephants sprayed water from the rivers, but the rivers themselves were weak, carrying only small trickles compared to what they once had. The monkeys spread fruits and seeds, but many rotted in the dry ground before roots could take hold. Hunger continued to trouble the animals. Though grass had returned in patches, there was not enough for the deer. The parrots found only a few berries, barely enough to fill their stomachs. The tigers and wolves, strong and fierce, grew thinner as their prey grew scarce. Even the elephants, who could survive on bark and roots, sometimes went hungry. The young ones cried at night, and their mothers tried to comfort them, but their hearts were heavy. Despite the hardship, the animals did not give up. Every morning, when the sun rose, they gathered to continue their work. The elephants walked long distances to bring water. The parrots searched tirelessly for seeds. The monkeys climbed high into the mountains, finding fruits where the fire had not reached, and carried them back to share. Each animal, great or small, did what it could. The wise old owl reminded them often, rebuilding is not the task of a day or a season. It is the work of patience. Just as a tree takes years to grow tall, so will the forest take time to heal. Do not lose courage. But courage was tested often. Storms came again, bringing heavy winds that tore at the young shoots. Some of the new plants broke and fell. The animals cried out in despair, but once the storm passed, they returned to work, planting again, guarding again. When the rivers dried in the heat of summer, many animals went thirsty, yet they still carried what little water they could find to the young trees. One day, a fire threatened to return. A bolt of lightning struck a dry stump, and flames began to rise. The animals panicked for a moment, memories of the great fire filling their hearts with fear. But this time, they acted quickly. The elephants sprayed water to drown the flames. The monkeys threw wet leaves onto the fire. The deer stomped at the burning grass, and the parrots called loudly, warning others to help. Together, they stopped the fire before it could spread. That day, the animals realized something important. They were no longer helpless. Together, they had the strength to protect their forest. Slowly, very slowly, the forest began to heal. The grass spread wider, covering the ground with green. More flowers bloomed, their colors bright against the gray soil. The rivers grew clearer as the rains washed away the ash. Fish returned, frogs croaked once more, and dragonflies danced above the water. Still, the forest was not the same as before. Many great trees were gone forever, and the land felt smaller, emptier. The animals missed the towering giants that had once touched the sky, the deep shade that had once cooled the earth, the countless fruits that had once filled their stomachs. But even as they missed the past, they began to see beauty in the present. The young trees, though small, were strong. The flowers, though few, were bright. The songs of the birds, though not as loud, were sweet. The young animals who had been born after the fire saw the forest differently. To them, the green sprouts and the patches of flowers were not signs of loss, but signs of life. They had never known the paradise of the past. To them, this forest, though scarred, was still a wonder. Their eyes shone with curiosity, their steps were full of play, and their laughter reminded the older animals that life always moves forward. One evening, as the sun set in gold and crimson, the animals gathered at the riverbank. The wise old owl looked at them and spoke. "My friends, we have suffered greatly. We lost much, and we still struggle. But look around you. The forest breathes again. The rivers sing again. The flowers bloom again. This is not the forest we once had, but it is a forest we have built together. And together, it will grow strong." The animals listened, their hearts filled with pride. They realized that though the fire had taken their paradise, it had also taught them something precious. It had taught them unity. Before, they had lived in harmony without effort because the forest had given them everything. But now, they had learned to work side by side, to protect each other, to share their struggles. The tigers no longer walked with pride alone but with responsibility, guarding the weak. The parrots no longer chattered only for joy but carried seeds with purpose. The elephants, though tired, carried water not just for themselves but for all. Even the smallest ants, moving in endless lines, became part of the great work. Each life, no matter how small, mattered in rebuilding. The struggle was far from over, but it was no longer hopeless. Hope had grown into determination, and determination had begun to bear fruit. The forest was still scarred, but it was alive. And life, once it begins, always finds a way to grow. The animals lifted their heads to the sky that night. The stars shone brighter than they had in many seasons, and the moon cast its silver light upon the young trees. For the first time, the animals felt not sorrow when they looked at the night, but peace. They knew the struggle would continue, but they also knew that together, they would succeed.